Hello. This is going to be a brief video about how to do these Bendire's Thrasher callback surveys and to put all the information from everything we've learned from some of the earliest surveys done all in one place so you guys can find it all in one place and kind of watch the video to go over the entire protocol and what all the different data sheets do. I'm Jenny McFarland. I'm with the Tucson Audubon Society. I'm co-coordinating these surveys with Christina Conrad-Smith up with Arizona Game and Fish, and this is an extension of survey work happening from Cody Bear Sutton at New Mexico State University. So thank you so much for signing up to help with this project. It is a really important citizen science effort, and we really couldn't do it without you. So everything that I'm going to talk about right here is on the website, and I'm going to show where it is on our aziba.org website. So here's the first thing you're going to do, which you may be familiar with if you've already signed up for these surveys. You're going to go to our website, which is www.aziba.org. So it's the Arizona Important Bird Areas website. You're going to go over to the home page, and right here on the home page at the top we have a Bendire's Thrasher little paragraph, a photo, and a click here button. Okay, so this is going to take us to the Bendire's Thrasher page, dedicated page for this project. So it has some nice background information about the project. It's got some videos which are quite long, where when Cody, who's the head for this entire project, which is covering both Arizona and New Mexico, came and did a talk, and this is really worth watching if you want to know about why this project is coming about, why, kind of background about the species itself, how it's in steep decline. They're worth watching if you have the time. So then it talks a little bit about protocol. We've changed a few things since then, which is why I'm doing this video now. So when you come onto the website, it's got those 3 videos and then a little video about how to use a GPS unit, which is about, I made for the yellow-billed cuckoo surveys this past summer. So it has some details about cuckoos, which you can ignore, but all the information about how to use a GPS unit is quite good. So I recommend looking at that if you're not familiar with GPS units and you're going to be using one. So then down here we have the online Google map of the locations. You can check that out to figure out if there's any points you want to do and where they are generally. And it's great because it's on Google Maps. You can zoom in and out, see the road names. It's pretty cool. We also have some PDFs of the locations if you don't want to use the online interactive map. And then down here we talk about how to sign up for the route, and it's got a little paragraph, you can read that, where we're doing it all through online Google Sheets where you can put your name onto a route and see which routes are available, which have been claimed. And then down here under number 3, do the survey. This is where all the sheets are located that we're going to talk about right now. So the first one here is the Thrasher identification chart, and it's a PDF that when you click on that link will open and you can download. So that's this right here, and it's a nice little chart that was put together by Chrissy up at Arizona Game and Fish, and it shows some nice photographs including close-ups of the heads of the different thrasher species that you can encounter in Arizona. Now the one of course that we're most interested in here is the Bendires. And this is actually, the reason we put this together is this is one of the most tricky parts of this entire survey process, is to make sure that you actually have a Bendires. Because when you first look at a Bendires, a curved bill can be very confusing. They look very similar, they're the same color, they're both thrashers, they're really quite similar superficially, but when you look really close, there are some things that can really help you make sure you have a Bendires, and this sheet goes into some of those things. The top one is going to be just the general size, and the second page talks about that and shows that how a Bendires is considerably smaller. But when you see them on their own, that's not very helpful. The bill of a Bendires is much straighter, much more straight and shorter than on a curved bill. But a young curved bill can also have a smallish, straightish bill, which can look superficially a lot like a Bendires. To me, one of the best ways to realize, to really be sure if you're really on the fence, you have a thrasher during the survey and you're on the fence, is if you hear a whit-weet at all from a bird, that classic whit-weet we hear all over Tucson and Phoenix, that is a curved bill thrasher. A Bendires would never make that sound. They have a different, much more quiet, chirrup kind of call that you hardly ever hear. They don't call a lot, whereas curved bills call all the time. And one of the volunteers told me that if you play from an app or something, if you have a thrasher and you're really not sure, if you play the whit-weet call from your phone or from any sort of bird app, if it's a curved bill, it'll answer whit-weet. So that's one way to help really parse them out. But anyway, so we have this ID sheet here. It's got some really helpful information. I recommend taking this in the field, as well as just some typed out information describing the calls, the songs, bill, plumage, iris, and behaviors. Behavior is a big one too with Bendires. So that's what that first thing is, the Thrasher identification chart. The next thing we have here is the audio file. So this is a link of the actual MP3 file that you'll need to take into the field in one way or another, on your phone, on an iPod, something like that. And to download that, you can't just click on it. You have to actually right-click, and I have a description here how to do it. Right-click, save link as, and then it pops up, MP3 format, and then you can name it and save it anywhere you want. So that's how you do that. Okay, so then the next thing we have here is the point count form. So this is the actual form that you're going to use, but the first thing we're going to talk about is the actual protocol. This protocol, this is a brand new project for us. We've never done anything like this at Arizona IBA or with Game and Fish, where such a large statewide effort using citizen scientists such as yourself, volunteers. And the protocol, we've updated it a few times over the past week and a half, which I do apologize for, but as of now, as of actually on Monday, March 9th, March 8th, it has been completely updated. This is the final version. So if you printed it earlier than that, you might want to look at it again. So that's down here. It says final protocol was updated 3.8 with a little description, download here. Again, it's a PDF you can download and print. So it's got some really nice information. It has the species description, it's got the background, and you should really read through this whole thing thoroughly before you go out in the field. It's got project objectives, survey time and location, so just sort of more background information about the whole project. It's got survey method overview. This is incredibly helpful, and this is what we're going to talk about right now. So when you sign up for a transect, and it has 3 point counts. So you need to go to each of those 3 point counts and do the survey protocol, which we're going to talk about with the data sheet. And the data sheet really kind of helps lead you along with that. And it's going to be very similar if you've helped with a cuckoo survey or just a general IBA survey. They're going to be kind of similar, where you're going to go up to your point. So this is a fixed point that's predetermined, which is the one you signed up for, the series of 3, so 3 within a transect. You're going to stand on that point once you find it. You're going to officially start. We'll talk about this a little more with the data form. And then for 3 minutes, you're going to just silently observe very carefully, seeing and listening for all bird species. And we're going to record those, like verdins, cactus wrens, anything, all birds that you're seeing and hearing. Once that 3 minutes is up, so you're going to want to have a watch or something that you can time 3 minutes, or your phone, set a 3-minute timer. Then when that's over, the Bendire specific portion begins. So you're going to use this MP3 file that you downloaded, and you're going to play it with a portable speaker. So this can be from your phone itself, or I have some portable speakers you can borrow. Chrissy will have some also you can borrow, or just any portable speaker will work. And you're going to play the audio file. It is already set up for this survey. So it'll play the song of a Bendire Thrasher. You're going to point that in one direction. It'll play the song, and then the minute of silence is built into the file. And then in a minute, it plays again. You don't have to start it over. Point it in another direction. It plays again. There's a minute of silence. It plays again. Point it in a third direction. It plays again. And then minute of silence. So once that's over, if nothing popped up, so if any sort of thrasher or northern mockingbird, anything in the mimid family appears, you're going to document that. If it is a Bendire's, though, that's when things get really interesting and really fun. And then you're going to do something different, which we'll talk about in a minute, and that has to do with territory mapping. And we'll talk about that data sheet. So anyway, make sure you read through the entire protocol. And then the main things that we added, so if you have an old version of this, the main things we really want to emphasize with this new version is that we have added an optional vegetation protocol, which we'll talk about in a minute. And then we also added a thing at the very end talking about, so we have a detailed thing here on how to do the territory mapping. Make sure you read through that. And if you do find a Bendire's, that's when a repeat visit is required, so that you can go do some more territory mapping. So just make sure you read through all this very carefully. I think it's very nicely outlined on what you're going to be doing. But we did add a thing here on the end where if you can't reach your transect for some reason, so if a gate is in the way or a fence line, or it's just such a tangle, like a cliff. We had one of the early volunteers encounter a situation where the terrain, they couldn't reach the exact point. What we've decided, and we talked with Cody about this, what we've decided is if you can't reach the exact point count, but you're sort of close, go ahead and do the survey in an area that looks like similar habitat if you can see the correct point count location, or just anything that looks like suitable habitat, far enough away from a road, with some native vegetation, and go ahead and do the survey anyway. We don't want you guys wasting your time. These predetermined points were randomly placed, and the fact that you're almost there, or you're out there in a very similar location, the point is still randomly placed, so it's going to be just as valid as the predetermined point. So go ahead and do the survey. The only thing is that those 3 points need to be at least 400 meters apart from each other. So you can use your GPS to do that. You can use your car odometer if you're trying to just paralleling a road. They have to be at least 400 meters apart. They can be more than 400, but they have to be at least 400. So go ahead and replot those points. And you're going to do that in the field. You have to make sure you absolutely record those new UTMs and write on your data form that they're new, that the survey was moved. So just make sure you read through that on the new protocol. We want to make sure that no one's out there getting frustrated and wasting their time, because you still might find a Bendires in that new location. So make sure you definitely read the protocol. Read this very carefully through. So then the other form we need you to really make sure you have is, it says here new, as of 3/8, vegetation data sheet. So this has to do with, and you only need one of these for 3 point counts. We have room to write down all the information for all 3 point counts of a transect on this one sheet. So you only need one of these for each transect. So what you're going to do is, of course, you're going to put your name, the name of one, or if there are two of you, both observers, the transect number, that's important, point 1, point 2, point 3. And this is a very simple, we didn't want to make this too complicated, very simple protocol where all you're going to do, and it talks about this is written out in the protocol, but it's also on the data form itself, where when you reach your point count location, you want to do this probably before you start doing any of the surveying, which is why we're talking about it first. You're going to record from a point count. You're going to sort of look out to 25 meters in front of you, which is about 80 feet in front of you, and kind of imagine a circle going all the way around the point. And then you just want to count how many shrubs you see within that invisible circle that are less than 5 feet tall, or 1.5 meters. So all the shrubs that are less than 5 feet tall, just count how many of those you see within that circle, and then how many shrubs you see that are greater than 5 feet, and count all of those. And you're just going to record those numbers right there. They want you to also write in some of the dominant vegetation types, so species. We're especially looking for fruiting species, so things like wolfberries, hackberries, anything that makes those little fruits that the thrashers might eat. And then any other observations. So it's real simple, just counting sort of general shrubs, and if you are seeing any of those fruit-bearing species. And then it's got an open space to write anything you're noticing. So anything you notice about the habitat could be written, jotted down here. Maybe, a lot of creosote, a lot of cholla, large polyverdes, anything like that. Anything you notice about the vegetation or about the habitat itself. So we are making this optional, but we are highly encouraging you to do it because it's pretty simple, and it's going to give us some really interesting information, especially on sites where people don't find thrashers. This could help us figure out what, sort of the characteristics of sites that they're not using. Because this whole larger project is about figuring out the habitat needs of this species. So this sheet will really help us. So I really encourage you to go ahead and take one of these with you and fill it out. One per transect. So if you're doing 2 transects in a day, make sure you have 2 of these. Okay. So here's the actual point count sheet. You're going to want one of these for each point count. So if you're doing 1 transect, you want to bring 3 of them. If you're doing 2 transects in the morning, you want to bring 6 of them. You need one of these for each point count. And that is right here, point count form. Download here. So you're going to fill out the top stuff with the date, the time at which you start. You're going to fill that in right when you start. So wait on that time thing. The point number, your names, transect ID, temperature, you can get that off your car or use a thermometer. Wind, cloud cover. These are estimations, and the protocol talks about all of this. So when you're ready to start, you're on your point, you've already done the vegetation protocol, you're settled down, you're ready to go. Make sure you then look at your watch or your phone, record the time at that point when you're actually starting. Start that 3-minute countdown on your watch or on your phone, some sort of timer. And then you're going to listen and look very carefully and record all bird species that you see in here for that first 3 minutes. So you're going to write down the species names, codes, 4-letter codes if you're familiar, or any sort of abbreviation. If you don't know the code, don't guess. Just do any sort of abbreviation. N.card, we understand that to be northern cardinal. So any abbreviation that makes sense, go ahead and do that. And then you're just going to check off at what distance you detected it. So if you, and this is where how you first detected it. So if you hear a cardinal first, like, oh, cardinal, it's got to be between 0 and 50 meters away. Go ahead and put cardinal and put a hash mark, okay, that you detected it from 0 to 50 auditory. If you saw it, then go ahead and put it over here. So we're separating birds that the way you first detected them, audio or visual, and in what distance band you detected them. So by distance band, if you're familiar with IBA protocol, you've heard this. But what we mean by that is how far away it is. Is it from 0 to 50? It's like categories of distance. Or is it further? Is it from 50 to 100 meters? Or is it even further than that? Is it more than 100 meters away? So that's what we mean by that. And then if the bird is flying, you want to go ahead and check there. So like a mourning dove just zooms through. You go ahead and check one for flying. And then any notes, whether they're singing, whether they're doing anything cool like carrying food. So this is for all species, sparrows, verdants, anything you detect. So that's what you're going to think about that first 3 minutes. Then once that's over, once your watch or your phone beeps, 3 minutes is up, then we're going to actually go into the Bendire's Thrasher part of the protocol. We're going to play that audio file. You're going to use the speaker. It's going to play 3 times. You know, you just be turning it each time. It's going to play 3 times. And if you find any mimic, so that's any thrasher or northern mockingbird, you're going to go ahead and document that. You're going to put the species, the distance away, just estimate as best you can. 30 meters, 45 meters. Just do your best, you know, kind of gut check, guess, estimate. And then the bearing. How you do bearing is you take a compass like this. These are compasses that I do have available to borrow, and Chrissy has some too available to borrow. And you take the compass, and it has little numbers around it. Any compass works this way. And you want to make sure you take the compass and turn it until it's pointing to the north, till the red arrow is, at least on this compass it's red, is pointing to the north. So you have this compass, it's pointing to the north right now, and then you take those numbers around it, and let's say the thrasher's over in that direction. Okay, you'd be like, okay, that's approximately on the 300 mark, and those are degrees. So then you can tell from your compass that that bird is at 300 degrees. And what this lets us do later is sort of calculate where the bird's actually sitting. So if you tell us a distance and a bearing, we can sort of calculate where the bird was from your current location. Okay, so then, did it sing or call, it asks. Okay, and then they want you to check at which stages you detected it. So when he says point count, he means this 3 minutes above here where we were just listening silently for all birds. Did you detect this mimid, this northern mockingbird, or any thrasher at that point? Did it only start calling after playback 1, 2, or 3? So let's say you hear a curved bill thrasher calling the whole time. He's calling during the 3 minutes of silence at the beginning. He's calling during playback 1, playback 2, and playback 3. You're going to check all of those. If he's only calling during that first initial point count, check there. And then he finally calls again, or you detect him again during playback 3, go ahead and check just those 2. So this is just, we want to check at any stage during the survey in which you're detecting that bird. And then any notes or behavior. Are they carrying food? Are they digging? Are they anything like that? Any sort of behavior you want to note. Okay, so this is just for all mimids. Okay, curved bills, crystal thrashers, northern mockingbirds. If you do get a Bendire's, then you go down to the last portion of the sheet. And this we're going to ask a little more information. They want to know at which interval. So here's those 1, 2, and 3s. And those are the 3 times the thrasher song is going to play on your audio file. That's what they mean by the 3 intervals. Then if you do see the bird, or detect the bird here, whatever, a Bendire's thrasher, you're going to record the distance, the bearing, was it singing or calling, of audio or visual, and then any notes. Okay, so then this last thing at the bottom here is just kind of a summary. So Bendire's detection, a summary specifically about Bendire's. So on the point count, did you detect it during that 3 minutes of silence? Yes or no? Did you detect it during the playback? Yes or no? Did you detect it before the survey? Yes or no? Or after the survey? So any or all of these could apply, okay, when you're detecting the bird. And then any sort of notes or any photo documentation, go ahead and write that down. And then any other notes or observations. Okay, so we have room for that right here at the bottom. So this is the sheet you're going to be using during the actual point count itself. Okay, so if you do find a Bendire's, and you want to make sure you have some of these with you in the field in case you do detect a Bendire's, what you're going to do then is, so that's the sheet here, the territory mapping data sheet. So the protocol talks about this really in really nice detail about what you're going to do with this sheet. And this is, you're only going to use this if you do find a Bendires. But I would recommend bringing at least one per point count into the field with you in case you are the luckiest person and you find a Bendires at each point count. You want to be prepared for that. So you're going to take this sheet, and if you do find a Bendires is when you're going to use this. You're going to fill in the top information, the date, your names, the transect ID, and the point count number. Otherwise, we don't know where this was. So this is what you're going to do. Is it visit 1, 2, or 3? So you're going to circle that. If you got this on your first visit, you're going to circle 1. And it has some information about any, so 1, 2, or 3. Then what you're going to do is what we want you to do, and the protocol really does this in detail, is we want you to record at every location in which the bird was perched or sitting. So then, like when you first detected him, once he flies off, you're going to walk up with your GPS, take a point, and record those UTMs. We want you to write the UTMs right into the sheet. And then any notes. Was he carrying food? Anything you notice, what type of tree it is, anything like that. Anything that seems noteworthy to you, go ahead and write down. And then as the bird moves around through his territory, and that's what you're doing here, is you're trying to determine what his territory is. So as he moves around, we want you to kind of follow after him and record those UTMs. And sometimes they can go to the same point multiple times, and that's fine. Just record the UTMs multiple times throughout the sheet here. And this is going to really help us later sort of map out exactly where the territory is. And then at a later time, Cody's going to come back from New Mexico, and he's going to do some really rigorous vegetation analysis and vegetation, record a lot of vegetation metrics of the outline that you're determining through this. So the sheet has space for 20 points. It would be absolutely awesome if 20 points could be filled in. And that's going to have to happen over 2 visits. And that's why a second visit is required if you find a Bendire Thrasher. If the protocol talks about this as well. So the goal is to try to get 10 points on your first visit. Just follow them around and record, with your, once they fly off from the tree, kind of walk right up to the tree, take a UTM point. Then he flies over to a cholla. Once he moves, walk over there, take a point right at the cholla. So fill those in, and then you're going to come back on a second visit. The protocol talks about exactly how many days you have to wait, so go ahead and look at that. And then just sort of do it again. And it may be the same perches again, or many of the same perches, and that's fine. Just go ahead and write those UTMs down again, okay? And then any notes about what happened during your visit. Okay, so then the last thing we're going to talk about is what to do if you find a Bendire Thrasher and you are not on a point count. This could happen in a couple ways. This could happen where you're kind of driving out there, you're halfway there, and you see one on the side of the road. In good habitat, that can happen. You're out birding, having nothing to do with this, and you find a Bendires. You've staked out a Bendires on eBird, you want to go check it out. Any situation like that where you find a Bendire Thrasher and you are not on an actual point count, going through the whole point count protocol, this is the sheet we want you to fill out. And this is on the website too. And it's the species observation form. Okay, and it explains what it is. This is for a Bendire Thrasher, not on a point count. But it's asking you just some sort of general information. The date, time, your name, and affiliation. So if you're an IBA volunteer or a Game and Fish volunteer, anything like that, go ahead and fill that in. The species, so you're going to write Bendire Thrasher there. Number, how many you had. So is it one, is it a pair? The location with UTMs, elevation, reproductive status, and the sheet really explains what it's asking you. So it wants you to talk about if you're finding it on a nest, if you've heard it singing, anything like that. Habitat type and condition, dominant vegetation type, so just a little description of the vegetation you're seeing, any comments you have, and then some information on where to send it. So this is going to go directly to Christy or myself, and our contact information is at the bottom of this website here. Okay, so this is what you're going to fill out if you find a Bendires not on a point count. And then the other thing we want you to do is to also go ahead and go through the territory mapping protocol if you find one of these Bendires not on a point count. This information, these 2 sheets together, Cody is going to come back and do vegetation analysis on these Bendires. This makes a Bendires you find as valid as one that was found on a point count. So this is another great way you can help with the citizen science effort to help us really try to figure out what's going on with this habitat that this species requires. So again, the species observation form is kind of like a Bendires you're finding off of a point count, plus a territory mapping sheet is going to really, really be helpful to this project. That's another way to go out and do it. So then we have a window placard that you can download, which just kind of has, bird survey in progress with some logos. You might want to print that out and put that on your dashboard because it really kind of Because if you have to walk away from your car, it explains what's going on while your car is parked there. And then we also have some videos here at the bottom of the website showing some Bendire's Thrashers sort of feeding and calling and chasing each other around. Some really nice videos that Chrissy shot up near Phoenix. So if you have any questions, please contact myself, Jenny McFarland, or Chrissy Conrad Smith up at Arizona Game and Fish. Again, our contact information is right here at the bottom of the sheet. And thank you so much for helping with these surveys.